welcome back to the PMR Podcast. Before we get into this week's episode, I wanted to share with you our first partnership with Clean Cause. Clean Cause is a pretty awesome company. They sell yerba mate drinks. The founder is in recovery, and they put 50% of their net profits back into those struggling with addiction and alcoholism. Absolutely love their company, absolutely love their message, and very thankful for them to partner with us. If you're interested in getting some, you go to their website, cleancause.com. All right. When you're checking out, you're going to enter in Mitch20 into the discount code area, and that's going to get you 20% off on these fire drinks. Right now, I got that cherry lime. All right. Enjoy this week.
Welcome back to the PMR Podcast. My name is Steve-O, and this is episode 40.
Welcome back. Very excited for this one. Bringing on my best friend. Been my best friend, very close friend of mine since like 9th grade, 8th grade, something around there. We met in high school. He's supported me literally from day one, always been in my corner, always been someone I could talk to, and turned into, basically, not even basically being a part of my family. He is part of my family, and his brother and his mom and dad as well. So very excited to bring him on. My boy, Grant, welcome to the podcast.
Well, glad to be here.
Oh yeah. So for this episode, we're going to get into, I feel like, our relationship over the years and stuff like that. And, but we did want to ask, how we ask the first question every time is, when you think of, with all your experience, with me, and I'm not sure, we've had a couple friends go through similar processes as well. But as you sit now, when you think of an alcoholic or an addict, what does that look like for you?
That's a good question. Especially because I feel like it interacts with everybody differently in the way that how it kind of comes off to people around them. I think to me you know what? That's a good question. I've never actually thought about that like that. What does that look like to me? Ask me one more time.
Yeah. So like, I guess because people have different perspectives too. We've had people on before. It's like, before I got sober, even I thought when someone said like an addict or an alcoholic, I know the cliche answer is like a homeless guy or a homeless person, and that everything's falling apart, and they, just you tell them to stop and they just can't stop. I feel like that's probably what some people think. And then like for me, my perspective has changed drastically on that. But I guess, like, what does that look like for you? Like when you hear that this person is an addict or this person is an alcoholic.
Yeah. Honestly, like you, my perspective has changed over the years. Honestly, to me, it's almost like it can be anybody. I think, like you said, the classic cliche of like, oh, it's a homeless person or a quote unquote like junkie or somebody that just can't stop. Like it's never as simple as that. You can see somebody at work that you might know that looks perfectly fine all the time, looks like they got everything together. But like they go home and they just, they're drinking from the time they get off work to the time they go to bed, and it could affect everybody in their family, their friends, and like you don't even know. And I think that's been the not craziest thing, because it's not crazy. It's just that's been something I've really over the years have just like keyed in on, is like it can happen to anybody. And it's not as obscene as some people make it out to be, like, oh, that person's an alcoholic or they're a drug addict. It's like, no, it's not that far-fetched. It can happen to anybody at any time. And I think that's been the most eye-opening thing to me, is it's no longer, to me, it's no longer a stigma. It is the reality of life. And I think being aware of that and being understanding of that is one of the most important things that I think you can do as a human.
I love that answer. Just to hop in real quick, and one thing I like that you said is like it could be anybody, right? And we have that cliche in our heads and working where I work, right? The director and the founder of the rehab that I go to, he talks all over the country, and he talks about his like motto right now is, everybody likes to talk about the worst day in addiction, and nobody ever talks about the first day. Um, and that, like, what you just said kind of reminded me of that, just for some reason, because I think it's because, like, I don't know, did you guys ever have like you did dare class and that all that stuff, like, and there was like just gross, they showed us like pictures of people's teeth on meth and like all this really like striking over the top crap.
Yeah.
And so that was my idea, right? Like you said, like we get all this really, the worst of the worst is like the image that we have. And I really love how you said, like, it could be one of your coworkers that holds it all together at work, like, and then goes home and everything just kind of comes apart from 5 p.m. to bedtime. So
They always show the worst stuff. It's never the in between. It's never the almost like the nuanced things that come with it. It's always like, like the DARE program is ridiculous. It's just like always like worst case scenarios. It's like if you do this, you'll end up, if you do A, you'll end up at Z. Like it's
Yeah.
not always some, I feel like often it's the B through, whatever is like really the hardest part, especially the hardest stuff to watch other people go through.
Yeah.
It's not always like the rock bottom point is the hardest. Sometimes I've noticed it's watching that. It's watching what happens in between is this like the really hard part.
Yeah. And that dare stuff had like a counter effect too, because like I remember seeing that, and I can distance myself from that because I can say that's not me. I can be an active addiction as I was and be like, I'm nowhere close to that. That's not me. I don't have a problem. And because I can't relate to that, it continued, along that path of like, I'm all good. You know what I mean? I feel like that played a part in it. Definitely. I think like the more effective stuff is like going in and talking to, like, last week I went into some high schools and talked to the classes about like drug and alcohol stuff, and it was more personal, and it was more like sharing experience and like trying to get the point across to them that everything doesn't have to be on fire for that to point to you having a problem. It can be a problem much earlier than that.
have we asked Steve-O this question?
Yeah, I think we
We
did when
did
we
way,
Dude
way
was like,
back, I think.
absolutely.
Yeah, I can even tell you what I answered.
What'd you answer?
My answer was addiction is when a habit that you have starts to negatively impact you and the people around you.
Very
Yeah.
analytical as always from Steve-O.
A big data guy here.
Big data guy.
So to just kind of get right into it, and I want to hear both of your guys' perspectives. Steve-O, I think we've heard a little bit before about, your guys' experiences in college. But I think the cool thing about this episode is that we have got two of Mitch's friends, really close friends, best friends, you could say, I think. And from kind of different parts of his life with some crossover, um, and who have seen, you know, the progression of the disease like firsthand. And so Grant, I want to, just to kind of give our listeners a little background, like when'd you meet Mitch? Like when did you guys start hanging out? I want to hear a little bit of the backstory.
Yeah, as we kind of touched on right before we started recording, but um, I knew of him. It was like ninth grade, I think.
Before you get too far in, what did you know
Yeah.
of him? What did you hear through other people that you knew of him?
Man, we keep it PG on here. I mean, he was
No,
just like, no, no.
we can edit out whatever we don't want.
It was like it was almost like some petty like high schooler stuff where it was like, oh, this kid's talking to this girl, like, oh, let's clown him. Like, let's clown him. For no real reason. Like, I didn't actually know the kid. I would just hear like, oh yeah, he's kind of an asshole. He's loud, like, whatever. Like, nothing that was like, stay away from this kid. Cause like, it was what, ninth grade? Like, there was no real reason, especially looking back on it. I think he was like talking to somebody at the time that like one of my friends was talking to, and they were like all upset and flustered about it.
They're
Like,
beefing about it.
yeah, like some petty high schooler stuff. Like, there was no real reason for me to like feel a way towards them or anything. Which I didn't. I just was like in on the fun. Like, there was no real reason to like feel a way about this kid. And then I transferred back to the school that we ended up going through all through high school, like halfway through, just because I missed playing hockey there. And we had an art class, terrible class, but it was me, like three other kids sitting at this one table. I just happened to get paired at their table, and I was like, oh, okay. I was like, okay, this is Mitch. This is who our friend was talking about. Okay, cool. And it just like naturally happened. I think it was Mitch, me, and our friend Jared. We just started hanging out like what felt like every week at that point. Like, I can't even remember the first time how we hung out. That's crazy. I've known this kid for like over 10 years. I can't even remember the first time like how it came up like, yo, let's hang out. Like, couldn't even tell you. That's just like how
Deep
almost
it
just
is.
like,
He's just there.
yeah, he's just like there, which is super cool. Like, there's no like there's a lot of people you can kind of like remember like, oh yeah, I started hanging out with this person here. Like, it was just like, no, I can't even remember the first time. But yeah, it was like ninth grade, second half of ninth grade. I have like a crazy memory for random stuff. So it was like January of like 2012. That's how random I remember this stuff is.
And
But yeah,
when you met him, like, and started hanging out with him, what was that? What did that look like? Were you guys like using together? Was there was it a party setting? Was it more like you guys are just chilling, getting food, like playing Xbox? Like, what was it? What were you guys on?
I think it was a good mixture of going out places and then just chilling at Mitch's house in the back room, the game room. We would just play random stuff. Honestly, it was like a good mixture of everything, you know. I think the first like year or two, I would say, Bob, it was pretty simple. Like, there was nothing crazy, you know. I think a lot of that came with like being in like ninth and 10th grade. Um, there wasn't too many dramatic things happening. It was pretty simple stuff. The crazier stuff didn't come until like junior year, senior year, probably. Um, yeah, no, it was chilling. A lot of gaming, a lot of Xbox. Still do it now.
Do you remember like or if you ever did have a point where you thought that the stuff I was doing like could be an actual problem? Because like I know we're where we grew up and like what the environment we were in, all that sort of like drug use and partying was very co-signed, like even by the parents.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so like once I got out
very
of
co-signed.
yeah, once I got out of Maryland and went to college, that was the first time anyone ever said to me like, "Oh, you drink like that or you do drugs like that," you know?
Yeah.
So did you ever think like because um well I told Andrew before you came on, but you never you didn't drink in high school and that was kind of like your choice. I don't know if you want to speak on that too, but
Yeah, absolutely. I think everything that happened played a big role into why I didn't for such a long time. I would say I really started noticing that it could be an issue. Like, I was like where I really had to like be like, geez, this could I think this could be something bad. I would say it was probably beginning of senior year. Because I feel like I don't know how you felt, but I feel like almost the autonomy that we had senior year, which is crazy to think about because now we're like full grown adults, you know, right? And we have like autonomy any and every day. But it was like almost like the autonomy that we had senior year, and especially like that almost that like ego feeling that all high schoolers have when they're senior year, you know, like they
You're
are the oldest at
invincible.
their school. Yeah.
You're
You know,
never
I
gonna
feel
die.
like, yeah, exactly. I feel like the idea of almost like you're at that point in your life where like you feel invincible, kind of like Steve-O said, like you have that feeling of immortality, like you're young, you know, like your consequences don't really matter to an extent because you're still a minor, you know, and I just feel like it was like the beginning of senior year was really when all of our friends kind of started doing like crazy stuff, doing these crazy, just these crazy stories you would hear about that your friends would tell you and stuff like that. I really feel like that started happening beginning of senior year. Um, and I feel like it was just like a snowball effect. I feel like bigger risks were taken. Um, and the idea of being kids, a lot of us didn't want to express how we were feeling. You just shove it all down and just do anything to outwardly flex that everything's okay, that you got it together. Um, yeah, I would probably say the start of senior year is when I kind of started to really be like, we might have a problem here. And I just feel like it snowballed pretty pretty fast, honestly. Especially by the end of senior year, especially by that summer for sure.
Steve-O, you can speak on this too, right? Like, so right, you're in high school and it's ninth and 10th grade and things are still kind of like innocent. Like for me, Mitch, I know you were using at that point, you know, but maybe it wasn't as pronounced. Maybe it wasn't like, seeping into your everyday like life type of things, and you're still kind of able to hold down some of that like more innocent shit from our childhood. But as that like kind of transformed, and Steve, I want to hear your opinions too, like on getting to know Mitch and then seeing the same type of thing happen. Like, how did that feel for you? Like when you're now it's senior year and things are like you said, you're like, oh, we might have a problem here. Like, cause now it's, one of your best friends and they're struggling. Like it appears to be that they're struggling, maybe to you. Did you have like any experience with that previously? Did you have any, outlets or people that you could talk to or people that you could like where when you were like when you recognized some behavior that you looked at and you were like, this shit is dangerous or this shit could lead to a bad place, whether it be whatever it is, jail, whatever. Like, did you ever think like, what did you think? Did you want to tell him? Did you not want to tell him? Where was your where was your thought process?
Yeah. So, um, and more of kind of a clarification. So Grant knew Mitch up until senior year of high school. And then I met Mitch at the beginning of freshman year of college. So there's that summer. I basically met Mitch the same year that Grant is talking about, more like the tail end of the year, obviously. And yeah, I do remember when I had first met Mitch and the first few times we had hung out or gone to parties or anything. I realized pretty quickly, oh, I have not ever really encountered or met someone quite like Mitch that kind of um yeah, just drinks the way that he does and that sort of stuff. And at the time it was one of those things that I because I hadn't been exposed to it before, I there's no alarm in my head that says, "Oh, alarm problem, big problem." It was just, "Oh, this is different than I've known before." But it was also my first time getting introduced to college in general, and I'd heard my whole life about parties, party culture, everything that goes on at colleges, because that's when your autonomy, as Grant was talking about, kind of skyrockets. There's literally no parental supervision ever at college. I mean, unless when you're in classes. But I remember, I was walking around the first time on campus after my parents had left, and I was like, there's no one here that could tell me, no, you can't do this. No, you can't do that. Like it's time. Like you're on your own. And at that point too, like the consequences still weren't entirely on me. It's like, if I fail out of school, I'll just move back home. Everything will be, we'll just figure it out. And so all of that, and having, again, not really experienced it, and getting exposed to college in general, I can't really, form a distinction between, oh, this is bad, this is good. It's just everything I'm experiencing right now is very different. And I figured I would meet people that are a bit different too. And so, yeah, it's at first it was just kind of different, but then, I started seeing some stuff that I realized I personally would not want to be involved with. And that's kind of when alarm flags started going off. But I'm not going to be one to say, like, yo, you can't do this, you can't do that. And at the time, Mitch and I weren't all that close either. I mean, we were homies, we were on the swim team and all that, but we didn't spend as much time together as some other people. And so I recognized it, and I observed, like, yeah, this could start potentially being bad here. But it was more of something that I just kind of internalized, and I didn't it's again something that I mentioned when we were on the podcast, or sorry, when I was on the podcast earlier. It was like 6 months ago, which is crazy. But I didn't have the tools or the knowledge to even begin to really dissect or even approach Mitch in general and say, dude, this probably should not be doing that, or this is probably getting a little too extreme. So yeah, hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah.
Well enough. Okay.
Yeah. And Grant, like, being somebody who'd had known, because for Steve-O, it's like one thing, right? Like, it's a new place. I'm already overwhelmed by all these new experiences. Like, I haven't had any experience with like party culture really before for a college. Like, for me, I could see from like, and I've been in similar situations where it's like, hey, I don't really know any better. I don't know if this is right. I don't know if this is wrong. I don't know if I should be doing the same thing. Like,
Yeah,
I have no idea.
That's exactly what I felt. I was like, am I being weird now because I'm not doing these things? Like, what? That's exactly something that I felt, was like, am I the one that's like, should I be doing something different here? Yeah.
For Grant, like, because you had known Mitch, at this point for 3-4 years.
Yeah.
When these behaviors, like, when not behaviors, but like when you noticed something. So how did that go for you?
I think to touch on, Mitch mentioned earlier an important thing that I think is very important in this topic, of the idea of like how heavily it was co-signed. Especially where we were from. It was like, in looking back on it, right, as somebody that's 26, it's like, it was almost so co-signed by, like, you go to somebody's place and their parents are like, they don't care, whatever, which is, it's one thing, but like, you realize how that can really accelerate the process of somebody picking up these, the habits and becoming addicted to stuff. And I think Mitch, you could probably attest to that. Like, it accelerated pretty quickly for you. Like, it wasn't like you were doing this stuff like in 10th grade and it just like slowly, slowly got up to the point. Like, I feel like it like really picked up, especially in like senior year. Like, even junior, I don't think it was that wild. comparatively. And I think it was interesting to see that progression in a way, especially when Steve-O met him. Steve-O met him when Mitch was already in the thick of it, I think would
Yep.
be a fair assessment of stuff
That
to
is a
say.
great assessment. That's
Yeah,
absolutely accurate
like
assessment.
Steve-O met you, Bob, when you were at 100. Like I got to see it from like 0 to 100. And then Steve-O just met him right in the thick of things. So yeah, it was probably weird, Steve-O, to kind of see like, yo, am I odd for not doing this?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, especially college can kind of make you feel that way. And it's like, no, it's like, it's really hard to understand, especially out here in California when I was at USC. It was like talking to friends and like kind of explaining like what high school was like and just the area that we were from. They're like, geez, that's wild.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that that's not uncommon for people to be like, oh yeah, we didn't start touching that stuff till we got to college. Like,
Yeah.
and it was wild to hear that from people. And it really put into perspective. I think this also plays a big part into these things. It's like
Mm-hmm.
the privilege that we had and that our friends had in Maryland, that area. And it was just, like I said, I can't say it enough. It's like super eye opening to hear from people that you went to college with, for Steve-O to kind of see that firsthand and to be like, huh, this is college. What am I? Am I in the wrong? Am I doing something wrong? Will people
Yeah.
not want to hang out with me if I'm doing this stuff?
Yeah.
And it's like,
Am I normal?
yeah, it's like no, it's just like that's just the area that me and Bob were from. It was just so kind of ingrained in our culture, and especially with people that we were probably around, because not everybody's like that. You could hang out with kids that just did some casual stuff on the weekend, but that just wasn't the company that we were around.
Yeah.
And it was just so normalized.
Mm-hmm.
Is kind of wild to like think back on that and be like, yeah, that's wild. That's crazy.
Yeah, I remember getting to Denison and talking to people, and some of the other freshmen were like talking about like this is their first time drinking or they never drank before, and I was like egoed out my ego was just maxed out at that point, and I was like looking down on anyone that was saying that, and like honestly couldn't fathom how people hadn't been partying or drinking yet. And I remember like I'm Steve, like that first semester or even that first year, I hung out with like the seniors, like a really good amount because they were the only ones that were drinking and doing like drugs that I was doing. Like
Yeah.
no
And
one,
they were the co-signers in that situation.
yeah, and like I would basically just hang out with them because my partying and my usage level uh, only closely matched, only closely came to them. So that makes sense. But I know Grant, like my freshman year, I really don't remember a lot. Like the last year and a half is still pretty like unfortunately blurry to me. I remember like certain things here and there, but I was on like you were saying, kind of like steamrolling at 100 for the last year and a half of being an active like addiction and stuff. But I do know and I do remember that we really kind of lost touch a little bit there comparatively to like where we are now and where we were before in that like year and a half at school. And I just wanted to ask you if I don't because I honestly don't really remember if we ever had a conversation of you expressing like a worry or if we ever had any sort of like hard conversation. I don't really I kind of remember one time, but not really.
That's a good question. I think a lot of it was walking on eggshells. Um, I don't know if it's like that for everybody that deals with somebody that they know that they're close to that is dealing with addiction. But I know with you and one of our other good friends, it was like walking on eggshells.
Hmm.
Like you don't want to, and especially you couldn't tell you, you couldn't tell you shit. It was like it was like actively I would say something and you would do the opposite. Like you were like, oh yeah, okay, I'm gonna do it then. So it was like I kind of had to like play a game where like I had to be like, I don't know how to go about it. I don't know how to say anything. I don't know how to, because like you were a best friend. Nobody wants to lose a best friend. And I think some of it is also asking yourself, like, am I bugging about it? Is it really not as crazy as I think it is? Like knowing full damn well, like, yeah, it's a problem, but like you want to try so bad to convince yourself, like, oh well, this person's doing that and this person's doing that, and like, oh okay, everybody's doing it. Like, oh, it's fine. He's fine. It's all good. Like maybe it's just me thinking too hard and being overly sensitive about it. Like it's all good. It'll work itself out. And so I was walking on eggshells with Bob for a long time, and I don't know if we ever sat down and like had like a one-on-one conversation about it. I remember Todd being involved and I remember your mom being involved and I remember that didn't go well. And I think that was like the summer going into college. And I think you remember I kind of I took a hands-off approach. I think there came a time where I had like a breaking point with it where I was like, I don't know what to do. Nothing is like kind of changing. Nothing is changing the behavior. And especially as you get older, you realize like, yeah, of course, it's not that simple. You don't you're addicted to something. It's not just a change of, oh yeah, he's just gonna stop doing it one day. That's just not, that takes work, and I had to take a hands-off approach to myself where I was like, I'm either gonna sit here and be miserable because I feel like I'm losing a part, almost a part of me. Like I was like, damn, me and this kid have been through so much, and I feel like it's only getting worse, and I don't know what to do. And I was like, I'm also sacrificing a part of my peace trying to figure it out. And I was like, I got to take a step back. He's going to do what he's going to do. And if he decides I'm changing this, he's going to change it. And history showed, and he changed it. I remember getting the text when he was like, yo, I'm going to rehab. It was like a crazy text. I woke up in the morning. I looked at my phone. I was like, it was like in like a green message. It like wasn't even my message because he's probably like on the plane or something. Like that's how quick it happened. It was like, hey, I decided like I'm checking into rehab. Like I'm doing it, and I was just like, wow, because I don't even know if we had talked really for like at least like a month or two. Like it got to a point where like we would play Xbox every day with everybody to like just nothing, just like pretty much silence. Because I remember when you got off the team, I remember you called me and you tried to tell me what was going on, and I could tell like there was like a hint of untruth to the story, and I kind of like knew it, and I felt it, and I feel like for Bob, I don't know. I guess I don't really know like what that low point was for you where you were like, yep, today's the day we're changing it. But I remember from my perspective, that day was like, to me, that was where I could kind of sense like, damn, it's he's not on the team. Like he's not on the team anymore. And I was like, I know that was like the piece that was kind of like holding you there. It was like swimming. That was always your thing. And it was like hearing that. And then, cause I remember that was like right before you decided to go to South Carolina. So like when I got that text and he was like, yep, I'm doing it. I'm going. I was just like, man, that's crazy. And it was like, it was scary because I didn't know what was gonna happen. You know, because I think you always have that worry in the back of your head when somebody goes to rehab, whether that's gonna be it and it's over from there, or if they're gonna relapse. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't have a worry, you know, but this man, he stayed with it and he came back and it was crazy. I don't even know how to describe it. It was just a crazy feeling. And again, I always say this, but I'm super proud of him. I know it's like a long-winded answer.
And how did that relationship change, right? Like you said that you went 2 months like not talking to him pretty much before treatment. And that's like that was a big sticking point and like a red flag to a lot of my friends as well. They were like, dude, like I haven't heard from you.
Yeah.
Like I've done the same, like, and I don't know what the story was that Mitch told you about the team, like about getting, not being on the team, no longer being on the team or whatever. Like, but I've done, I mean, the number of times I've done the same thing, like, and it's hard. There's so many things that you just said that I want to touch on. It's not going to be possible, but like the other thing too, and like I still do it now. I don't know if the rest of you guys still do, but I try to convince like and some of my friends did too, like try to convince themselves that like I didn't have a problem, like or that the person they're worried about didn't have it. Like I've been in positions like with loved ones and family members and like where it's clear like that this my friend or whoever it is like that there's a problem, there's some sort of problem like addiction, alcoholism, whatever it may be, but because I love that person and I just don't want it for them so badly, like I will convince myself and like almost like put like the blinds up so that I can tell myself and be able to sleep at night like that, the kid that he's okay, like he doesn't have a problem, it's all right. And that's like such a like it's so straining, like when I hear tell your perspective on it, like at a pretty young age you were kind of put in this position of like that it's traumatic, like you're in a space where this person that you love and care about is like may or may not have this issue. And to me, almost it's not like when it's like that, it's almost like you're alone, like thinking about it, dealing with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Um, no, I think it almost, I don't know how you guys do this, but it's almost like natural as a human to kind of convince yourself of that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like naturally we always want to see the best in people. Um, so like it's almost harder, not almost, it is harder to come to that truth and be like, nope, it's a problem. It's a problem. It is a problem. It's harder to come to that truth than to be like, nope, it's all good. And I think I feel like as humans we do that for almost anything that's could be an issue. We always want to convince ourselves that it's good. Staring in the face of what could be a problem or even a catastrophe. You know, um, Kind of feeling like a friendship's gonna just evaporate over something that like you feel like you don't have personal control over.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I would say that real like me and Bob's relationship. I would say, I mean, I don't know about you, Bob. I would say it changed for the better. Like
Yeah.
I tell people now, like, yo, I'm closer to this kid now than we've probably ever been. And like we don't even live together, anymore. It's not like high school where like I see him every single day. Like I feel like when he went to rehab and he came back, I told myself, I was like, we've been through so many good times and bad times. Like, I'm not gonna give up now. Like it really, I think everybody wants to talk about somebody that has a problem or an addiction, and they can have all these ideas of it. but you never know what it's like until it happens to somebody that's close to you. And I think for me, it really shined a light on like the idea of what I said in the beginning of like, yo, it can just happen to anybody. It doesn't need to be this cookie cutter thing that this is what an addict or somebody that's addicted to somebody looks like. It can be your best friend. It can be your parents. It can literally be anybody. And I remember when he got out, I was like, especially when we met back up in Maryland, because that was the first time I saw him after he got out of rehab. And I was like, dude, I'm here to ride this out with you. You know what? I'm like, no matter where it goes, like I'm gonna like that support system is so critical. So critical. And we saw that over the pandemic. People that didn't have support from people that, they were used to seeing all the time. It's just like that's such a key integral role is like having support systems. And I was just like, dude, I've been through so much with this kid. Like, what am I just gonna, if something goes left after rehab, like, am I gonna split? Like, no, I'm here for it. I'm absolutely here for it. And I think a lot of us that were friends with you, like we were like, yeah, dude, whatever you need, it's not because he was there for us for a lot of times too. It's like I think that's super important is that going through that with him, seeing that happen to him, it was like I think the relationship changed for the better. And I think we're fortunate that did happen. I know a lot of people it's not like that. A lot of people it's easy for them to see this person has an addiction or they're struggling with something. It's like gone. Figure it out. It's your own problem. And I think those are battles that as a human you got to pick and choose. You know, um, and I think for Mitch it was like, yeah, dude, no brainer. Yeah, like let's do it. Whatever you need to come back and just be you. Like, yeah, let's do it. Here
I
we
think,
are. It's been 10 plus years.
yeah, that's insane. It's been 10 years. I remember sending you that text. I remember like that last month, I guess, after I kicked off the team and then my mom had the intervention and then all that stuff. I mean, those last like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it was, is just like that's gone. I can't recall anything during that at all. Like my roommate on campus moved out and similarly, how you said you kind of had to for your own peace and because, it was like walking on eggshells with me, you couldn't tell me anything, it wouldn't get through. I'd take it extremely defensively, or as an attack, regardless of what you said, couldn't hear anything. And I think a lot of people started to take that approach, like take their step back, like get away from that. I remember my roommates dad said that I was like a poison or something like that. And I remember even early in recovery, I was like, that's such a fucked up thing to say, but like it was true. Like I was just like not a good thing to be around, I feel like. And I think like when I went to rehab and you were saying like we've never been in a better place, like, I can't thank you enough, honestly. I've tried to over the years and tell you all the time, but it's like you were the central like pillar of support and like a mainstay, like always there before, always there during, and always there after. I mean, I can't point to anyone else, you know, that was like that. And um, just, I can't thank you enough for that. You know what I mean? Like I owe a very good amount of my recovery early on to you as being someone that I could talk to. And like, that's when we were in different states, but basically, playing Xbox with you like almost every night. And I was living in a house I'd never been in. I was freshly sober and trying to figure it out if I was going to go back to school. Those like 8 months where I was out of school in a different state and all that stuff is where I think we kind of began rebuilding a little bit and have continued to do so for the last 6 years. But I can't, yeah, bro, I can't, I know we joke around a lot and stuff like that. But you know how I feel. I can't thank you enough. I'll never be able to. Um, I'd never be able to. So, yeah, I know that. I think you could have easily done what like a lot of other people did and just been like, good luck to him, because I feel like there are experiences that could have denoted that. But um, how was it like for you? Like, what did you said like you did, a lot of times people go to rehab and it doesn't stick, and that's like to an extent very much part of recovery, relapse. But how did that feel as a friend, like once I got out, because I was only there like 35 days,
Yeah. I'll be honest, like it was scary. I think it was one of those things where, especially because we did like the classic thing, I feel like that we always did for a few years, where you and I would go back to Maryland, and we'd see our old friends and stuff. And I remember that took you a while to come to that decision. I remember talking to you, like you were like, I don't know if I should. I don't know if I want to. Like you were like, there's like a lot of hurt and a lot of pain there. Like, I don't know if it's worth it. And I can't remember how we came to that decision, but like, yeah, dude, like, yeah, it was scary. I think anybody that probably has a friend that gets out of rehab is like, do I think part of you wants to completely change almost like your entire rapport with that person. Part of you wants to, oh, I can't, I don't want to say this type of stuff. I don't want to do this. I don't want to go there. I don't want to hang out with these people. And like it was kind of scary, And I think when you came back, um, I think we really just focused on just kicking it, like just like us. Like we really just like hung out. I think it was at Ginsburg's, and like it was like super low key. And I think part of me was like, damn, we could go out somewhere. You never know what happens. And the next thing, you get all these ideas in your head, like, oh, they're gonna relapse. Like it is a scary thing, and it was a scary thing. Because there's no way to call that. You know what I mean? There's no way to. I feel like you can try and do stuff to steer that direction to not have that happen, but it's like like it was scary. And I think after you getting out of rehab, I think you were, just from all the stories that I've heard, it's like you put that, you really sat down with yourself and was like, yeah, I don't want to do that anymore. Like, it's just I don't want to. Like, you knew the journey was going to be hard, but you're like, I'm going to do this. And if there's one thing about you, and you put your mind to it, you do it. um but yeah, I'd be lying if it wasn't like a scary thought that you could relapse at any time, you know. Yeah, that's, if that, does that answer the question?
yeah, I was gonna, yeah. I remember we were talking about coming to Maryland. I was like, I don't know, 5 months sober or something like that. And I think we only went to like one. We went to Josh's house that one night, and that was the only like sketchy interaction. Other than that, we were just like chilling. But I guess for Steve-O too, like when I came back to school, because you had the whole perspective of I got, I got let back on the swim team and let back in school, and then came back and then kind of like sheepishly walked around campus for at least that first semester. Did you have like I guess a similar experience? Because that's when like you and I, like I think we started hanging out the back half of our freshman year, and then into that summer we hung out. But I feel like our friendship like really blossomed once I got sober. Like you were like one of the main supporters of me back at school in Ohio. Um,
Yeah, man. I think once you got sober, you just generally became a better person. You were more present all the time. Because when you're using substances to just force everything down, you become someone different, and usually not not a better version of yourself. And so, yeah, I felt like every time I interacted with you, every time we had a conversation, everything was just very present, real. There was no bullshit about it. It was just everything was very to the point. And I remember you
Felt raw.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It just felt raw. And you knew it was raw too, because you just went through this incredible transformative experience. And I know that there were a good amount of kind of sketchy situations, because it is a college campus and there are parties happening everywhere. And I know you tried your best to go to them, but you had your systems in place. So you're like, yeah, this isn't it. I'm going to leave. And I think witnessing that kind of gave me a lot of confidence that you were going to be okay. You had your own systems in place. You had fail safes. You knew your triggers. Basically, you knew what was going to trigger you to want to do something, or if you got voices or something was telling you to do something that you didn't want to do, you're like, I need to remove myself from this situation immediately. And some people take that personally, and I think that's on them. That's not on you at all. That's 100% on them. And I think that kind of creates a weird kind of dynamic, especially with people on the swim team. I feel like may have kind of gotten that kind of idea, and they took it personally, like, I guess Mitch is too cool to hang out with us. But it's like, no, actually, he's kind of going through some crazy shit right now. So you just let him be him. And so that was my kind of experience with the whole thing. But I do think that our friendship blossomed, and I think the other friendships that you formed after the fact, just they were deeper, they were more meaningful, and as Grant said, they were more raw, they were real. If you didn't enjoy spending time with someone, why you wouldn't drink to be like, oh, now I enjoy having conversations. So it's just like, we just have differences of opinion. We just aren't quite the same, and that's okay. And you can walk away knowing that that's okay. So, yeah.
What would you guys say to someone that is a friend of, like, I guess, like, what, through your experience, what's the best way to handle being a friend of an addict or an alcoholic, a close friend? Because you can only, like, I think you kind of spoke to, like, you can only help to a certain extent, right? And then, like, when I talk to people, I get my advice is similar to what Grant did, which is like you can help to a certain extent, and then there comes a time where that help can turn into enabling. I see that a lot with families. Families think they're helping, but at a certain point, if you're like paying for all their stuff and letting them stay at your house and like stuff like that, it can get blended into enabling. So there's that, and then there's just like the hard fact of stepping away. You did as much as you could, and it's impacting the friend now more than the person in active addiction. They might, you know what I mean? So how do
I
you
think
guys navigate that? What would your advice be?
I think so. I think you should definitely have like a sit down one-on-one conversation and say, I am me being the person who's talking to someone who may have an addiction issue. I would say something along the lines, and this is just how I think I would personally handle it, knowing what I know now. I would say, I am here for support. I'll drive you places. I'll drive you where you need to go. I can do X and Y for you, but you need to also acknowledge and understand that if you do want to get better, if you do want to go down this path, that is going to fall on your shoulders. And I'm happy to help push you in the direction you need to go in, but ultimately it's going to have to be your power that carries you there. So I I think in essence that's kind of how I would approach it.
Yeah,
Grant,
I think I think to add to Steve-O's point, I think having, hindsight's 2020, right?
Mm.
Had I been able to have a conversation with you, Bob, I can't even say how that could have gone, but I think one thing I've learned over the last few years is I've had an experience where, like you, where somebody dealing with an addiction, the outcome was positive. Um, I think as much as you thank me for that, I also thank you because it kind of changed almost how I view just a lot of things, whether it was myself or the world. And then I had a negative experience with somebody that was going through stuff. And I honestly, I had to put my hands up and I had to, honestly, I just had to walk away because it was hurting me to the point where it was making me question just everything about myself. And I think being able to see somebody at their most vulnerable is such an it is such an important thing. And I think for anybody that has somebody that's going through stuff right now that might have been that are currently in the place where I was with Mitch before he went to rehab is like it's difficult and you're not going to necessarily know exactly how to go about that situation. But the first thing, the most important thing is to, I think, almost ask yourself and be like, I've been with this person, like I've seen them at their best and I've seen them at their worst. And sometimes it's just being human, honestly, and just being like, yo, we all make mistakes. We all have issues. Like not one of us in this chat right now, you know, on the Zoom is perfect or has no issues going on. Like we all got stuff going on. And I think just sometimes I sit down and be like, okay, this hurts, but I also, for the lack of a better word, I love this person, or you know, this person is like family. Like I'm not, I can't, I don't want to give up on them. And if, like Steve-O said, if they are willing to, if they can acknowledge it, that's even better. You know, if they can be like, yo, I'm at rock bottom, and I this is a problem. If they can acknowledge that, then that's a moment to be like, all right, I'm not going to give up on you. You know, being able to acknowledge that, Andrew or Mitch, I don't. I that's probably the hardest thing to do is to be like, yeah, yeah, this is a problem. This is an issue. And if like you say that, at least to me, I'm gonna be like, yeah, all right, I'm not giving up on you. All right, what do you need? You know, I'm your support system. To the extent that I am not personally just absolutely at my core shattered, you know, because I think as a human we all have a bandwidth that we can go through and put up with. But like I think honestly it's just being a human and being like, okay, yeah, you've acknowledged the issue. Like, yeah, dude, I'm gonna be a support system. It's hard. It is hard. You know, there's no right or wrong, like or there's no like set way to go about it. Um, and I know that it's challenging. Um, and I'm fortunate enough to have the situation with Mitch where it did end up in a positive place. And I know that that's not always the case for people. And I know that, and it sucks, but you just gotta. I don't know. Is it wrong for me to say? I think you gotta just know when, almost like pick and choose that battle with that person. For Mitch, I knew that that battle was worth the fight. Wherever that fight took us, I knew it was worth the fight. I knew it was worth the battle. And I know for some people, it's just like, yo, it's not worth that battle for me right now. I don't know. That's just me being super honest about it, I guess.
Well, I think it comes down, like you said, to like you're a human, like you have a bandwidth like we all have limitations and a certain amount that we can take on and support, and beyond that we can't, like our power is very limited. Um, but there's a place, like I think Mitch talked about too, that if we're still there, like giving support to somebody who no longer wants the help that we think they need. Like I've been in, and I'm sure all four of us have been in situations where the person, we can clearly see like that they need help, but they don't think they do. Like, and they think they're all right. Like, and for me to sit in that situation, it could be my best friend, but for me to sit in that situation for any like real period of time, that's damaging to me. Like, and in this like a self preservation mindset, like I can't do that for too long. Like I can't. And there comes a point too where my support becomes unhealthy for this person, because it's just like another excuse of like, oh yeah, he's still my buddy, like he still hangs around with me even though I do like what, so I can't really be that bad if he hasn't, run away from me yet. If Mitch was real bad and he wasn't admitting he had a problem and you were still hanging around with him and like letting him do whatever, he could tell himself, yeah, like Grant doesn't, Grant still chills with me. I can't be that bad. Right. Like, but I think the beautiful thing about you two and Steve-O as well, Steve-O's relationship's a little different just timing wise, but is that you didn't really, the thing that I love about Mitch and Grant, like you guys is you guys are fucking blessed. You didn't have to deal with any of that, to be honest with you. Like Grant never really had to walk away from you, Mitch. Like that
In
shit
person.
happens.
Yeah.
That shit
Yep.
happens a lot. Like, Mitch, like you've seen it, you've done it. Like we got to walk away from some, like from relationships when that person doesn't need help or acknowledge it or whatever the case may be with them not getting healthy. And you two are blessed. Like Mitch had that realization. He needed the help. He got the help. He started putting the work in. And so that support system that you talk about, Grant, like it paid off because he was willing to accept it. And now, like, I see two guys who probably have a stronger friendship than they've ever had, and that's because, like, when we go through these things together, when we get through like some stuff that's beyond fucking playing Xbox Live, like, has a little trauma, has a little emotion to it, then we come out the other side. And instead of just being friends, that's how we become brothers. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, I mean, when I sit here and listen to you guys, like I'm really lucky to just have sat and listened to your perspective, because I'm listening to somebody who has been there with Mitch, in the beginning, the middle, and the end of his addiction and beyond. And the beyond part and the after the addict, like that's the beautiful part that I'm hearing. Having you guys have been roommates out on the West Coast, now living near each other. Like, it's just like you guys are both blessed, and I'm lucky to have heard, your perspective on it. You know what I mean?
Andrew, let me say this. I think almost how you view like me and Bob's friendship and stuff is like I think something that's really special is I think like aside from you guys starting this podcast, it's the fact that because you guys have been through similar situations, it's like in two separate grades. Because I think you were a year or two below Bob.
Year.
Yeah, a year, and it was like the fact that you guys could like kind of talk about this and just like become friends and really talk about this and like open up to each other and be like, yeah, like we're just two regular dudes, and like we've been through this and we know what it's like, and the fact that you guys can like just like aside from bringing awareness to addiction and all this, it's like it's like beautiful to see. It's I think it's super unique and it's super special. Actually, scratch that. It's not even unique in a way that like when Mitch goes to meetings and he tells me stuff and just hearing people's experiences, and it's like it's not even, I hate that there's like a stigma to it. Because like I said, like it's again, bringing it back to the idea of it could happen to anybody. It can be anyone. Like I hate that there seems to just still be like stigmas around it when it's like people that are throwing stones talking about it, it can happen to them. And I think that's like the important part about it is like, I don't know. It's the older I get, and I think being close to it by proxy in a sense of, going through it with Mitch, it's just like these things do need to be talked about more. And I love that you guys are talking about it. And I like that I see people talking about it more. Um, it's more common than I think people would like to admit. And I just think it's like special that you guys get to like talk about this stuff and have people on and have these discussions, and Steve-O being in on this and helping with setting everything up, and that's super cool. It's super rad. And like I said, I appreciate you guys having me on just to talk about all this.
Of course, man. I can't believe it took this long to get you on, but episode 40 sounded like a perfect one. And I think like Andrew mentioned, a blessing. I think I'm sitting here looking at the 3 camera windows, and it's like all 3, like the boys together. And uh, all of that, is made possible through my sobriety, and my continued sobriety is only made possible because of you guys, you 3, and others helping me sustain that. So it is kind of like very wild. And I know like the miracle stuff is thrown around a lot, but it's like a daily blessing and miracle to have you guys in my life. And like you were speaking to Andrew, like he's been like honestly, bro, Andrew's been my first like good sober friend. Like all like near my age. All my other friends in recovery are much older in terms of like my sponsor and some other guys. So uh he came into my life exactly when I needed that, and to do this with him, I told him like right before the episode, like can't thank him enough for doing it with me, and I wouldn't want to do it with anyone else. So thank you, Grant, for coming on. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. It was an honor.
Yeah, it was dope to have you on. And Steve-O, our main man, our editor behind the scenes, killing it all the time, brought you on too for episode 40. Appreciate you coming on.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And yeah, thank y'all for listening.
40 episodes, man. 40. You guys have 40 episodes. That's wild. That's awesome.
Hey, don't let me get, listen, I don't build my ego up too much over there.
I gotta.
I got
Somebody's
Mitch over
awesome,
here.
man.
Mitch gonna make me fucking cry. It's just this whole episode is it's a roller coaster of emotions. So don't end it by building up my ego. But
We need more of that, man. We need more. Like, this is gonna sound so whack and corny. I don't even care. Like, we need more of that emotion.
Yeah,
Because I don't know about you guys, but it keeps me going. It keeps, whatever. I don't the idea of being cool is, who cares? Like,
the idea of being cool. Yeah,
like,
that's
who
true.
cares?
I used to be
Whatever.
stuck on
Like,
that one. Still am a
it,
little bit.
it doesn't matter, especially as you get older. You're like, dude, whatever. I'll go outside looking like a clown. It's like I'm in good spirits today.
Big
I got
ass.
the stuff I need. Like, nah, dude. I think being able to, listening to the podcast, especially at work. I told Bob I listen to these like while I'm working, and it's just like I like pause and I'll be like, wow. I was like, dude, this is nothing but just like knowledge and facts. And I think it speaks to how knowledgeable you guys are on it, but also that you guys are just constantly trying to learn more and more.
Mm.
And I think that's like the most important part is like you guys are always looking for
Growth.
Yeah, growth, different people to talk to, different ideas, different listening to people of all different walks of life. It's just that's awesome.
Thank you, bro.
Keep doing it.
Yes, Sirski. we will keep coming back. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Grant. Thank you, everyone that's listening. Episode 40. We will see y'all next week. Much love. Go Ravens.
Go Celtics.